my friends. This is Rick, and this here's Frankie, who's getting up here and just can't behave herself. She's out there crying at the door a minute ago. Yes, we're going to do a video. Yes, we are. This is Rick, and you're seated at the table along with Frankie today, and we're going to put Frankie over here. You get up here. Get up there on top of that thing there. And we are looking at Battletech's 20-year update. This is 2050. The Inner Spirit 3050, excuse me. And Frankie, come on, Frankie. You can't get on the table. I'm not having you walking on the laptop. Maybe she will do that and cause problems. I paid $12 for this book. And what year? What year did this come out? 1989. Already, the very last page fell out on me when I was, yeah, see, it's typical. So the odds are this is going to be going into a bag soon in order to protect it. And what we have here is a quote 20-year update or a leap forward in the game. So we started out, the game starts out in the year 3025, and a lot of our early material is based in that era. And then we have a new generation of people come along, and we have 3050. So this was a leap forward for us. We have the historical overview of the years between 3030 and 3050. New governments are formed. The fourth succession war has been fought. Out of it comes the free Rasalhague Republic, and I'm starting a little better. Rasalhague Republic. Pronouncing that one. Like I said, it helps when you can hear other people pronouncing things in their videos because it gives you a context, a audio context to go from. When you're trying to understand terminology and verbiage and wording, especially foreign languages that is not common or used in your area, trying to understand how they're pronounced can be a struggle. It took me a while to get hegemony pronounced correctly, and that was mostly after listening to other people audio, other people's videos where they actually are saying it, so I can get the tones in my mind as to I understand how the word works, I understand what it means, but how to pronounce it, and then you add that to that little bit of touch of dyslexia that I've had my whole life that causes some issues. This is why I'm not a great orator. I'm sorry about that, but it is what it is. New leaders arise, the arming of ComStar, the redirected map of the inner sphere. You can see where the Federated Commonwealth has taken their successful bite out of the center, and both the Free Worlds League and the Capellan Confederation and the Draconis Combine have taken a big hit. The Rasalhague Republic has taken another hit of that. So we have our entry for Federated Commonwealth unification. It's not going so well. Opposition to the alliance. Armed forces of the Federated Commonwealth, individuals for the High Command, various departments, ranks, defense industry, the economy. So while Lyran worlds did not suffer much damage in the Fourth War, allowing the Commonwealth economy emerged virtually unscathed in the transition period from war to peacetime economy, the Lyran stock exchange did plunge as unemployment rose, but things calmed down once the huge Commonwealth industrial base turned to more consumer products. The Federated Suns economy, on the other hand, suffered twice as much. Many Federated Suns worlds boarding the Combine did suffer heavy war damage and lost resources or markets on the worlds captured by the Combine, but the economic harm times, which did not end until late 3032, were caused mainly by the interdiction that ComStar imposed on the Federated Suns during the war. Indeed, these interdictions created virtual chaos among the realm's business. And I'm sorry, but I have a contradiction to that. That's why I read it. Yes, the interdiction by ComStar did not help. The truth of it is, the enhanced Davion's interstellar transport needs to move such a vast amount of military units, resources, and replacements and material to the various fronts, forced him to cannibalize the commercial fleet of the Federated Suns. So they up to 80% of the transport jump ships and drop ships available on a normal economic basis, daily basis for the Federated Suns had been removed. So there's the real reason their economy took one in the butt and it was in bad shape for a number of years. It took a while to release all these transports and get them back into function, get them back to their trade routes, to reestablish those trade routes, and etc. And that played a heavy goal, and they don't mention it at all. They downplay it. Goals and problems. So then we have the Federated Commonwealth's armed forces. They're what units, what region they're deployed at, etc., etc. And as you can see, this is at this point the Federated Commonwealth, if they had managed to keep their shit together, and the clans had not invaded, I'm just saying they could easily have taken over the rest of the inner sphere, individually or combined. The sheer numbers are on the side, because look at our units. We're looking at several hundred units here, and we look down at, right here it says Mech strength 268 regiments, 1 battalion. That's just in Mech units. So you figure there's 268 Mech regiments, and in probably close to 1,000 armored and infantry regiments, and another 200 or 300 aerospace regiments combined. Right? I'm just saying that grossly overwhelms other major houses at period. So it goes on for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pages. And the only things listed here is the actual Mech regiments. This doesn't include the main line regiment too. Keep in main line and secondary, like the March militias and things like this. But like I've said before in other videos, there are other Mech units, there are other combat forces available to the individual worlds as well. So majority of these worlds, if they got any kind of influence, have defending forces, home guards, National Guard kind of setup, personal private bodyguard, royal guards of the local nobility. So they could range from anything from a couple squads of infantry for security to entire regiments, depending on the forces. Plus, many of the big defense industries and factory complexes and corporations also employ them and mercenaries. So the reality is that there's probably twice as many or 3 times as many of these forces available to a given world. We just don't talk about them, and we don't see them much in the lore. They do crop up once in a while. This is why I'm vindicated in saying what I do. And if you believe I'm wrong or you have a different take on that, by all means put a comment down. Well, we can have a discourse about that. I'm all good on that. So we have the War of 3039, first wave, the counter thrust, pre-war border of 3039, the war of the post-war border of 3039, the Draconis Combine. Well, it's very important to consider that all the major houses had some major change going on after the Fourth Succession War. The Fourth Succession War creates a huge amount of oh shit moments, where the various house lords and their leadership had to come to grips and terms that certain things and certain conventions that they have been going by for the last 50 years failed, or they needed to be updated to take into account this massive change that's going on. And while the Confederation is reeling from all its losses on many fronts, and within and without, it's trying to get its act back together so they can still be a viable something. Free Worlds League is also in turmoil at this point. The real serious radical changes occur in the Kurita house and within the Draconis Combine, in my opinion. There's this conflict between Takashi Kurita and his son Theodore. Even though at some point, though, Theodore has proven himself and has gained enough of support within the Draconis Combine that even his father is forced to recognize this and gives him the position of Ganjaneri, or however now it's pronounced. He's basically the House Warlord. And the two of them are at loggerheads on a number of things. And Takashi himself reportedly suffers a heart attack, which causes some additions. In addition to that, they have a lot of unrest within the House leadership. So when the Fourth Succession War comes to an end, the only really true victor or winner of the Fourth Succession War is the Federated Sons. This is to be just brutally honest. Everybody else takes it in the butt. Everybody else loses, including House Steiner, the Lyran Commonwealth. And they get had in a lot of ways. It's because of the results of this stuff that started to really change my view of Hans Davion specifically, but the Federated Sons as a whole, and their members, their leadership, and how they conduct themselves, how they really conduct themselves. They have a great PR department, and they take that moral high ground on a regular basis that wear the white hats to the inner sphere. In reality, they are very not that. They are very conniving, manipulative, and aggressively domineering than what their PR tries to present them as. Kurita Steiner originally enters this agreement with Hans Davion with the idea that they're going to create a lasting peace within the inner sphere that brings an end to this never-ending series of succession wars. The third succession war by this time has been in function for better part of 4 generations, over 100 years, of constant low-level to mid-level conflict. Areas of things flare up, a few worlds exchange, they beat each other's resources up, and then things lull down, and then it becomes skirmishes and border raids and supply raids and that kind of stuff. And then build up their forces again, and then they just keep going through this cycle. And Katrina's looking to try to bring it into this, to bring some kind of lasting peace among the houses. Even if there's no Star League, there's still a reason why all these. We know now that ComStar is an instigator of a lot of it, but it's not the instigator of all of it. It's not fair to just dump all the inner sphere's problems at the feet of the robes, because that's not really. There's all kinds of factions behind the scenes. That's another reason why when I picked up this and its companion book, I really liked it, because it starts to open up some of those internal conspiracy groups that are not nobility driven. So there's just to show that typical human politics is extremely convoluted, and we know that from the real world, and it's not going to change to 1,000+ years in the future. So Katrina gets sold a bag of dung. She gets this idea that she's going to do something, and then Hans is the only one who takes up her offer. And then he quietly manipulates this burgeoning, union into a situation where he convinces Katrina the only way that lasting peace is going to happen is if they eliminate the threat of. And so he focuses on the Capellan Confederation because it's been a major problem to the Federated Sons' ability to deal with the Kuritans, the Combine. And if they can eliminate at least one of those powers, and the least threatening, or the most threatening to that, would be the Confederation. But in order to do that, he needs to be able to make sure that the Combine doesn't take advantage, which is typical of the succession wars. If he focuses all of his effort on one side of his border, the Combine's going to be emboldened and most likely invade it. So he needs the Steiners to fight the Combine. It's hoped, it's not said, but it's hoped that the Free Worlds League, with all of its internal problems, which I will point out that many of the internal problems that Janos Merrick was dealing with was being instigated by agents of Hans Davion, of the Federated Sons. Not of ComStar, of the Federated Sons. That's in the lore. Look it up. Wikipedia that. I'm just saying. It's there. Sarnair backs it up. So, the book stays so. House Steiner is brought on board, and with help over a period of 5 years, their military is given a boost. More importantly, it's giving some additional training and this belief that they can actually go on the offensive on a large scale. Because what we're looking at, the Fourth Succession War, and I did a video on this, is significant difference from all the other succession wars, in part because of how short it is. I mean, it's brutal, it's intense, it's large scale. all stuff you do not see in the Third Succession War. Something that the First and Second Succession War basically beat out of the House Lords. This massive front combat. So Hans realizes they have that advantage. It's him taking advantage of a number of circumstances and mindsets that help them achieve the goals they want. So the House Steiner and the Lyrans do exactly what they hold up their end. They attack the Combine, and they attack the Combine quite successfully in that first year. And then Theodore counterattacks and hammers them. He's also in a position to actually leapfrog and starts threatening worlds deeper within the Lyran Commonwealth, specifically the Sky Province, which he understands if he can do that, there's a very good possibility Sky Province, the leadership of Sky, is going to revolt and potentially cause endless issues within the Commonwealth itself, if not try to become independent altogether. And if the Combine would be willing to, quote, back that up, that would be achievable, which would be a major blow to the Commonwealth. He does so because he's been innovative, he's been open-minded, he's been realistic, he's been doing things that his father is incapable of doing anymore. And his father is totally obsessed and focused on his feud with Jamie Wolfe and the Wolf's Dragoons, which is in a different video as well. So, at the end of the war, the Federated Commonwealth comes out the obvious winner. The Lyran Commonwealth is a loser. Yeah, they won the war. They helped win the war. But when the war is settled, the lion's share of the worlds they capture from the Kuritans are negotiated with by a manipulation of ComStar and a collusion with Theodore Kurita to create the Rasalhague nation, to give this part of the Federated or the Draconis Combine that's always been a very big thorn in its side, and with its own version of the Sky Separatist movement in the Rasalhague. It's always been that problem. So they've lost all those worlds. They're not likely militarily to take any of them, any significant number of them back anytime soon. So they do a Hans Davion kind of thing, and they cut a deal that helps them out. They lose territory. They've already lost that territory. They still retain some key systems that didn't get conquered by the Steiners, and that Rasalhague Free Republic believes, rightfully so, should belong to them. But the Rasalhague Free Republic gets legitimized and recognized by the Draconis Combine and ComStar right off the bat. And Steiners lose some 50-odd worlds and all the blood, sweat, tears, and kroner that they spent to take those planets from the Combine. This horks off. This really cheeses off several factions within House Steiner. And the Federated Sons do not lose any of this stuff. It's not their worlds that they're losing. They've gained a significant number of worlds from the Capellan Confederation. So House Steiner and the Katrina Steiner takes one in the backside. They really get burnt. So we look at the other side of the coin, back into Draconis Combine. Theodore's on the rise. He's doing really well. They've successfully negotiated this deal to basically, politically speaking, give up claim to these worlds that were taken from them in order to deprive the Commonwealth from benefiting from them as well by allowing this creation of this yet new inner sphere house. This does not sit well with certain elements within the Draconis Combine. Some very hardline individuals, including Marcus Kurita, who's a brother or cousin of Tatashi. I'm not off the top of my head. Anyway, it doesn't go well with him, and so they basically invade the Free Rasalhague right off the bat and create what's called the Ronin War, because now Theodore's being challenged, and his agreement with ComStar and the Rasalhague District people are being put to the test and threat, so he basically launches an attack against the rogue. He announces that these are rogue Kurita soldiers, that they're going against the will of their house and their house lord, and declares them Ronin, and immediately sends loyal house units against them to help hunt them down and put an end to that. So we also get to his innovations. One of the things is currently that Theodore really shakes the foundation of the DCMS, and is he's finding creative ways, in some ways distasteful ways, as far as the traditional Kurita samurai philosophy mindset dictates, to bolster the Combine's defense and offensive capability. One of them is inviting the Yakuza to support some regiments of forces. Another is cutting deals with ComStar and getting aid, material aid, and technological aid, and intelligence aid from ComStar at a cost. He's also embraced this philosophy his father started. His father's the one that, when Wolf's Dragoons were in the employ of the Draconis Combine, Takashi realized that that wasn't going to last forever. He knew at some point the contract would end, and the Dragoons, traditionally speaking, the Dragoons always move on. They don't stick around for more than one go. And so that was that reason he put together the Ryukin and tasked Murano Maribu Tetsura to raise and train them and pattern them after the Wolf's Dragoons in their tactics and their military accruum and their battlefield knowledge. He wanted something other than his traditional units, and this didn't sit well with the extremely hidebound, tradition-minded high command, but there wasn't much they could do about it. And then after the issue with the Wolf's Dragoons, and the Ryukin and Wolf Dragoons basically beat each other to a pulp, as well as the Jinyosha, who were set together to go after the kill hounds. They lose favor with Takashi because he's now obsessed. He's having issues with his heart attack and other stuff, and they end up in the pocket, or in the ranks of Theodore. And in part to punish Theodore and to rob him of these potent supporting forces, Takashi breaks up the Ryukin and disperses them through the DCMS. This has an unexpected consequence, because what it does is the Ryukin basically takes everything that they learn and display it and encourage the other DCMS units that are now becoming part of it temporarily to embrace this philosophy of warfare and change. That the do or die matter is not always the only way or the best way to serve the house or the house lord. That serving the house, serving the Combine first, then the Lord second is important. And to be able to roll with the punches, to know when to back off, i.e. to retreat, to fight another day, as opposed to just dying conducting a horrific battle, that getting that victory that's pointless, because yes, you succeeded, but you devastate yourself in the process. So now the unit is completely devastated and has to be completely rebuilt from the ground up, and it lost all of its valuable experience and so on and so forth. So this made some major changes. And so we have Theodore's innovations, the War of 3039, and it's these innovations and some of Theodore's understanding of his foes that turns the tables on Hans Davion and his generals when the War of 3039 breaks loose. Why the War of 3039 was never considered the fifth succession war eludes me to a little bit, because I'm guessing it's because it was just the Federated Commonwealth versus the Draconis Combine. Even though there were some minor sparring on both the Capellan and Free Worlds League front, for the most part, it was directed at the Combine and fought in and around the Combine's borders. Theodore plays a mean set of poker, and it's Hans Davion who blinks first, because the sudden appearance of a dozen unknown, quote, ghost regiments And a lot of the house line units using unknown technology or resurrected Starlink technology, i.e. donated from ComStar, takes them by surprise. And this radical change in tactics and strategy within the high command of the Draconis Combine also takes the Federated Commonwealth leadership by surprise. It's sufficient enough to put doubt in Hans Davion's mind whether or not they're going to be successful or if they're going to lose more than they're going to gain. And then there's this even though Theodore was going to attack into the sky once again, and he had his forces massed, and it was agents from the Lyran Commonwealth's loci or whatever who disabled his jump ship fleet to prevent this. The fact was it caught the leadership completely by surprise that not only was the Theodore and the Combine capable of defending itself, but was actually in position to go on the offensive. And they were going to do so, they were going to stick a dagger into the Federated Commonwealth in a very vulnerable spot that potentially was going to cause it to break up or dissolve on one side. And it's all these indecisions and unknowns that forces Hans Davion to flinch and call off the battle, call off the war. And so the Combine actually wins, comes out stronger internally, and viewed stronger externally because of it. This also allows for his Theodore status to raise even more, and a reconciliation between him and his father that makes it even more potent force. So, border changes, DCMS, social economic reforms, goals and problems. It says, believing that the Capellan Confederation's rigorous social stratification was responsible for the defeat in the Fourth War, Coordinator Takashi instituted the Pillar Reforms of 3043. These laws, which relaxed the restraints on social classes in Combine society, are a major reinterpretation of the Dictum Honorum. The reforms also allow citizens more privacy than previously. While these reforms may trouble Constance Kurita and the ISF, neither have openly opposed them. The Pillar reforms also address the economy. They give the corporations greater freedom to chart their own destinies, and reforms also attempt to stimulate their inter-realm trade by increasing construction of commercial jump ships, as well as releasing ships requisitioned by the DCMS decades, even centuries ago. Trade with the Federated Commonwealth continues to be forbidden, as it has been for the past 20 years. Trade with the Free Worlds League, the Capellan Confederation, and the Free Rasalhague Republic is encouraged, etc. Just keep in mind, direct trade between the Federated Commonwealth and their Draconis Combine is no-go. Indirect trade is quite acceptable. So a lot of black market stuff goes on across the borders, and a lot of times third party. So a third party in the Free Worlds League or the Capellan Confederation, ideally the Free Worlds League, can get their hands on Federated Commonwealth goods and materials and then sells them to the Draconis Combine trade cartel. And one of those things that's in the jihad conspiracies is a very interesting Korean business person, and I'm going to do a video on that guy and his stuff at some point because I kind of think that would be an interesting thing to go. And he goes a long way to helping reverse some of the downsides and the fortunes of the Draconis Combine as of the 3060s realm, right? So social economic reforms, goals, and problems. So we got, remember, there was 11 pages. The Federated Commonwealth at the time, in the year 3050, had 11 pages of mainline and secondary line mech regiments and mercenaries in their plot. So the Draconis Combine has 1, 2, 3.5. 3.5 pages to those 11 pages. Theoretically speaking, the Federated Commonwealth should have been able to bury the DCMS. They should have been able to deliver 3-to-1 across the board. 3-to-1 across the board. The fact that, and they did do a lot of this, but the fact was that they were completely caught flat-footed. They had all their premise wrong. They've been telegraphing their intentions for a number of years. The Draconis Combine, Theodore specifically, had impeccable intelligence, basically thanks to ComStar and the ISF, and a whole slew of secret regiments to throw at them at a critical point in a critical time and give him the ability to go on the offensive, even in a limited fashion, enough so to make Hans Davion blank. numbers don't always win the battle. That's what I guess I'm trying to say. So we got the Free Rasalhague Republic, origins, blah, blah, and I basically explained how most of that came about. Independence, government, political alignments, the nobility, the military, structure, ranks, and performance. Alright, so, Federated Commonwealth, 11 pages. Draconis Combine, 3.5. 1 page. 1 page. Right? So we have the Free Worlds League, recent events. You know, Janus has Janus Merrick suffered a life-threatening stroke less than a month after the passing of the emergency act. He's basically out of the picture. And Thomas Merrick steps in to fill in his boots. So it goes. Thomas Merrick's success in filling his father's shoes sorely troubled Duggan, and Duke Hollis and ComStar. Duke and ComStar had supported Thomas because they believed he would be easily to manipulate. Now Thomas was proving being his own man, and ComStar was especially dismayed to see their influence over Thomas waning. Then came the news that Janus Merrick had recovered enough to resume control of the league. Janus Merrick called a meeting to discuss the ways to bring the Duchy of Andurien back into the league. Present were Thomas Duggan and Duncan Merrick, as well as several representatives from the diplomatic corps. Not long after the meeting began, a bomb hidden in a portable table explodes, killing the captain general and apparently everyone else in the room. Only Duncan Merrick narrowly escapes death after being called from the room on an urgent manner just minutes before the bomb goes off. Coincidence? Duncan assumes captain generalcy by right of rank and experience by order of succession. Paul Merrick, Duncan's shy older brother in the Ministry of Intelligence, should be technically have taken the reins of power, but there are many who hoped he would. But Paul supported his younger brother. Blah blah. So, turns out Thomas Merrick is badly wounded but not killed. He's whisked off and taken to ComStars to Terra, where they do some pretty fantastic medical stuff on him to help him survive and get through it. Or they replace him with a duplicate. Right? There's that underlying story that goes in there. Anyway, politics, supporters of Thomas Merrick, opponents of Thomas Merrick, the economy, foreign relations, military, conclusion. So we got 2 pages of military compared to 11 pages for the Federated Commonwealth, 3.5 for the Draconis Combine, and technically half a page for the Rasalhague Free Republic. But keep in mind a couple things. Most of the Free World League military is actually in good standing. It's in good shape because it did not fight in a very devastating conflict during the Fourth Succession, where it was very limited in their conflict. They also were not involved in the War 3039, so their forces are still in pretty good shape. Traditionally speaking, they've also had been benefiting from the increasing from the technology levels based off of the Helm Memory Core and other innovations of the time. And it's just their economy is fairly strong. It's internal strife, like always, that causes the Free Worlds League their biggest problems during this era. Keep in mind, all this takes place before a clan invasion. This is setting the groundwork for what the clan invasion, when it does show up. So we go on to the Capellan Confederation. Reconstruction. The Fourth Succession War leaves the Capellan Confederation in ruins. Not only has it lost half its star systems, including most of its economic industrial centers, but what little remained was defended by a military fragmented by unconquerable forces of Federated Sons. Piling misery upon misery was the departure of Lady Candace Liao, a woman forced to choose between her beloved father and the homeland and her love for Justin Exene Allard, a man who was a deep agent for the Federated Sons. Is any wonder the Chancellor went quietly mad? Reports of the sources in the Confederation make it plain, but the final weeks of the war, Maximilian Liao lost touch almost totally with reality. Most days he stood for hours over a map of his shrunken realm, pushing about scraps of paper representing Mech regiments long since destroyed, while he mumbled about torching Prince Davion after his troops captured New Avalon. Seeing the sad state of affairs, Lady Romano Liao assumed unofficial control of the Confederation and then has her dad murdered. He dies in his sleep. Right. Anyway. Politics, the Chancellor. military opposition to Chancellor. There's not a lot offensively speaking in 3050 that the Capellans can really do. There's a lot of political stuff and under the table stuff that they're obviously doing. But they're right now really working hard to rebuild everything and to re-establish the military that they did have and to bolster what they can and make up and try to fill in the missing issues from lost worlds. So we got half a page, so 1.5 pages. So militarily speaking, the Commonwealth is actually, or the Confederation is slightly behind the Draconis Combine in actual number of combat units. So it makes them numbers 5 out of 6 because the Rasalhague Republic at this point, or Free Worlds, the Rasalhague is number 6, the smallest insular nation at this point. Then the Confederation, and then the Combine, and the Free Worlds League, and it's a toss-up because the Combine has a bit more in the way of military units than the Free Worlds, but the Free Worlds military units are in better shape and have not gone, experience-wise are in better shape as well because they haven't been through 2 major grinders in less than 20 years. So anyway, then we got ROM and ComStar, political goals in ComStar, Com Guards, battle forces, etc. Deployment of comm guards across the inner sphere, military performance, and we got ComStar. So 1, 2, so we got 1 page, 2 pages, so 2 pages, militarily speaking. So that makes them actually about the third regiment on regiment, about the third in the hierarchy, but I would put them much further down the road because this is literally all their military work. As I said before over and over again, all the houses field multiple layers of military and including infantry and armor regiments and support units that go with them, so they have much larger militaries. The ComStar's military units are integrated, so their armor, infantry, aerospace, artillery, special forces, that kind of stuff are all integrated into the commands. So when they field a quote regiment, that regiment is a mixed arms regiment, and generally speaking, the ComStar does not maintain a whole pack of supporting regiments of infantry and armor like the houses do. They do have their number of military missionaries that they have, etc. So we have a section on military technology review, the periphery, what's going on with the Magistrate Canopus, Concordat, some of the Bandit Kingdoms and Pirate Worlds and stuff. So we get into, and then of course the personalities of the individuals and things like this, and so on and so forth. So a lot takes place. Between the Fourth Succession War and the arrival of the clans. Major shakeup, making change. But this shows you, this becomes the pattern for the next 100-odd years. So we know that clans arrive. Clans take a massive bite out of the Lyran Commonwealth and pretty much end the Rasalhague and a big little chunk out of the Combine. This takes all the pressure off of the Capellans and the Free Worlds League, so they're able to really double down and beefing up their own ability and defenses and so on and so forth. The Free Worlds League also benefits grossly from economics because now they're in a position to supply desperately needed munitions and parts and upgrade technology to their former opponents or their opponents in order for them to combat the invading clans. Then, of course, the Battle of Tukad takes place. A whole bunch of other stuff breaks out, and then we see this dissolution, this civil war within the Federated Commonwealth that breaks out, and they split apart. We see that the second round of the Clan War, where it takes place prior to the Civil War. And then we get into the formation of the Republic and the Dark Ages, and we're into an area that I'm still vague on. I'm still trying to get caught up with what went down in the years between 3070 and 3070 3100 plus. We're now in 3150, 3140 range. I recently got the redemption rights I'm reading Redemption Rep. So I've got the Redemption Rights novel, and I've ordered the Empire, Empire Rising, whatever the hell that new one is coming in. It's being delivered sometime next week, I guess. One of those purchases I made that I kind of trying to get caught back up in what's going on with things. I have to say, like I said, I took a 20-year hiatus for a reason. I was very disillusioned in early 2000, 2002 or so, when FASA bellied out and this WizKid fan pro thing came out, and when I started seeing things of, well, we're going to get rid of most of the mechs, and then suddenly everybody's going to have enough, we're going to have a resurgence, and everybody's going to be using modified logger mechs and agri mechs and crap, because somehow we radically beaten or turned our swords into plowshares kind of crap. I really got lost with it, so I backed out. I kind of wish I hadn't, now that I'd bit the bullet and stuck in on it, but I had other circumstances going on in my life at that time too that really needed to be addressed, and had to be addressed, and you can only limit what you can do. Sometimes you got to step back and make the real world work for you. Anyway, till next time, this is Rick, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.